Tonight, crunch time for a trade deal between Canada and the U.S.
The negotiations are at an intense phase.
What the Prime Minister thinks gives Canada the edge over the EU. And Stephen Harper's advice to Mark Carney.
This really is a wake-up call for this country.
Plus, the simple new way to vote in a complex by-election that includes Pierre Poilievre.
I don't think it's ever happened before.
Who stands to gain? And a close call in the open ocean.
The mast of the sailboat that was moving a lot.
A Quebec man set out on a solo sailing adventure, how his dream turned into a nightmare.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Heather Butts.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news in New York City, where 4 people have been killed, including a police officer, after a gunman opened fire inside a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan.
Mr. Tamora has a documented mental health history. His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location.
The suspected shooter, identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamora from Nevada, entered the building on Park Avenue with an assault rifle and opened fire in the lobby before taking the elevator and shooting another victim on the 33rd floor. He was also found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The building is home to several corporate offices, including the NFL and KPMG. One other person was critically injured. We are just days away from a trade deadline, and the Prime Minister says negotiations with the U.S. have reached an intense phase. The European Union securing an agreement over the weekend. Mark Carney believes Canada's trade situation is different. Still, he admitted today that a deal with no tariffs is unlikely. CTV's Abigail Beeman with who is now offering advice.
Canada's Prime Minister and the American President were both visiting islands and talking trade. Donald Trump in Scotland musing about baseline world tariffs.
I would say in the range of 15 to 20%.
The negotiations are at an intense phase. It's a complex negotiation.
While on Prince Edward Island, Mark Carney said Canada's trade position with the U.S. is similar in some ways to the EU's, but also different. Namely, the U.S. needs to buy energy from Canada rather than sell it.
There is a landing zone that's possible, but we have to get there.
Speaking in Saskatoon, former Prime Minister Stephen Harper said the Carney government recently asked him for advice.
We've got to kind of get something short-term worked out with the Trump administration, but this really is a wake-up call for this country to truly diversify its trade export markets.
One of Harper's foreign affairs ministers feels Canada may not get the kind of U.S. deal we want.
Donald Trump has really had his way with many countries, and they are coming to heel and rolling around like kittens on a couch.
Ontario's premier still hopes Canada is treated differently.
A tariff on Canadians is a tax on Americans. Prices will go up.
It's not the kind of recession-inducing shock that 25% on literally everything would have been.
This University of Calgary economist says a 15% baseline tariff on non-CUSMA compliant goods would still be a net negative for the Canadian economy. But it's important to focus on the bigger picture, what happens with CUSMA down the line.
That's a much more important potential shock to the economy.
Trump's trade deal deadline is Friday, with the Prime Minister saying Canada is still engaged in negotiations. Mark Carney stressing Canada is also already a big investor in the United States as we watch other countries accept deals requiring big financial commitments. Heather?
Abigail, thank you. The federal government is trying to boost interprovincial trade, making good on a promise to save people money in Atlantic Canada. CTV's Maria Saru now on where Canadians will see the savings.
$20 is the new price to get in and out of PEI by car, down from $50 and change.
We're doing that to bring Atlantic Canada closer together, bring Canadians closer together.
The toll trim starting Friday makes seeing loved ones or a doctor off the island more affordable.
This is wonderful news. Our family are all in New Brunswick.
A little less of a ding on the pocketbook getting off.
And fares on eastern ferry routes are also being cut in half. The boats move more than passengers, delivering food, medicine, and home heating fuel across the region. Whether by sea or by land, transportation costs are a major trade barrier.
Cutting those costs means more reliable supply chains and lower prices for consumers.
One industry alone in PEI, the potato industry, the tolls themselves have a direct and indirect impact of $7 million, which means for them, it's a tax on their industry versus, those who are on the mainland.
Critics of the toll reduction have raised concerns about shifting costs to taxpayers, including maintenance. But PEI's premier says it's about being fair.
Often it's the Champlain Bridge in Montreal that's cited, a bridge that was replaced at great cost to Canadian taxpayers with no toll.
In BC, Premier David Eby says it's not so fair for people across the country to help foot the bill.
We have to watch the federal government show up on the East Coast and subsidize ferry users that already get a $300 subsidy per each $1 that a BC ferry user gets.
Canada's deal with the bridge's private operator ends in 2032. Before then, officials will be back at the table, and local politicians say the next fight is for a free crossing. Maria Saru, CTV News, Albany, Prince Edward Island.
The number of candidates running in the Alberta riding, where Pierre Poilievre aims for victory in next month's by-election, has shattered records, with more than 200 people now in the race against him. CTV's Kathy Lee reports on what Elections Canada is doing to prevent a massive ballot.
209 confirmed candidates are on this ballot in the rural Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot.
It's very interesting. I don't think it's ever happened before, at least not to this extent.
Only 7 have political party affiliations, the rest listed as independents. Most are part of the advocacy group, the Longest Ballot Committee, protesting the first past the post system.
We're looking more at how to make candidacies fairer, how to make votes more representative of what people want, and maybe also having more voices heard.
The group also ran a campaign in Pierre Poilievre's former riding during the April general election when he lost, where the ballot had 91 candidates. The Conservative leader is looking to restore his position in the House of Commons, running in the Conservative Battle River Crowfoot riding, formerly held by Damien Couric before he stepped aside. Poilievre says the long list of names flooding the ballot is an abuse of democracy.
What it does is it prevents or it makes it difficult for credible candidates to get attention.
Like this independent candidate, in an open letter saying the longest ballot strategy will crush any legitimate independents who run.
How are we confusing voters? Are you not going to the voting booth with a specific person in mind that you're going to vote?
To avoid a massive ballot, Elections Canada has created an adapted ballot where electors can write the name of the candidate they're voting for instead of marking a blank circle next to a list of names. The by-election is on August 18th. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Persistent wildfire smoke is triggering air quality warnings across the country. Parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba are dealing with reduced visibility. Similar air quality warnings have also been issued for Quebec and Northern Ontario as sweltering conditions grip parts of Canada. Here's CTV's Sarah Plowman.
Hot, humid, and hazy. A heat that hangs and sticks.
Found it pretty extreme there today.
With the Humidex, Fredericton felt more like 39 degrees, even hotter in Toronto.
Hot as ever. I like it. It's the hottest I've ever felt.
Heat warnings stretch across much of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Southern Ontario, and some of Quebec, as well as in BC's interior and part of the Northwest Territories. It's been a hot summer.
In Toronto, if you go to Wednesday, say, with temperatures above 30, we've had 23 days. Last year, we had 10 of those days.
In Fredericton, this summer camp included lots of breaks.
And we bring a lot of water, and if the students are tired, we don't force them to play.
In Kitchener, some activities moved indoors.
We've had to come inside instead of being outside quite a few times, or try to lessen our time outside.
In London, this misting station helps the homeless cool off.
They give us shade. There's no other shade in the city except for trees, and without it, I don't think a lot of people would survive.
Doctors warn heat illness can start with fatigue and progress to neurological problems like headaches and confusion.
And if that's not reversed and dealt with, that's when people can get seriously sick. They end up going into the hospital and they need to be cooled down, because if not, hyperthermia can actually result in coma and death.
Hydration is key, and so is a spot to cool off.
It's brutal. There's a haze out, and we had to bring the kids to the splash pad today.
As for these heat warnings in eastern Canada, they'll still be in place tomorrow. Expect relief by Wednesday. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Dramatic video has emerged of a rescue off the coast of Labrador. Crews managed to reach a sailor who had been missing for days. Here's Jody Cook.
Hovered about a quarter mile away so that we could have good visual.
There's a clearer picture on just how precarious and challenging rescues at sea off of our coast can be.
So sailing boats offer a pretty unusual challenge for us to hoist to.
Footage uploaded to YouTube now sheds light on one such rescue, an experience shared on camera by Matt from 103, Search and Rescue Squadron in Gander. It takes the viewer to the scene of a sailor's rescue last week after he set out from Quebec on a solo journey to Greenland and then vanished from communications off the southeast coast of Labrador.
We had a good plan, taking into consideration that the biggest hazard was the mast of the sailboat that was moving a lot. So with that, we decided to stay away from the boat and actually have the patient jump in the water. So I got hoisted down as close as we could get me without being too close from the mast.
The roughly 20-foot sailboat had just a crew of one, its electronic systems failing, and rescue officials were dispatched when family hadn't heard from the man in days. A passing cargo ship was able to pinpoint the sailor. That's when 103 SAR Rescue Resources moved in, effecting a hoist in just minutes. Last Wednesday, the man was brought out of harm's way. But the Canadian Coast Guard also sent a message reminding mariners to think twice before venturing into open ocean and to ensure preparedness. Gander's 103 Search and Rescue Squadron is responsible for a massive jurisdiction. They cover all of the lower Arctic, all of the maritime provinces and Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as all offshore waters in the region. Jody Cook, CTV News.
A terrifying moment in Spain where a fighter jet looked like it may crash into a crowd of people watching an air show. Social media video shows the Spanish Air Force EF-18 Hornet hurtling toward the packed beach before the pilot appeared to regain control and steer clear of the beachgoers. The Spanish Air Force says the pilot performed an evasive maneuver to avoid a flock of birds in its path. And this is the moment a barge struck a sailboat off the coast of Miami Beach, throwing 5 children and their camp counselor into the water. Emergency crews pulled out all 6 people, but the U.S. Coast Guard said 2 children have died. The group was participating in a youth sailing camp. U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledged starvation in Gaza today, pledging to work to get more aid into the enclave. It comes as Canada ups its contribution and its push for a 2-state solution at the UN. Here's CTV's Colton Prale.
At the United Nations, Canada says a Palestinian state is crucial for peace in the Middle East. But the path to getting there is far from clear.
The truth is we are at a breaking point. The 2-state solution is farther than ever before.
Today, the Foreign Affairs Minister saying a workable Palestinian state needs legitimate democratic reforms to govern Gaza and the West Bank.
Canada is pledging an additional $10 million this year to accelerate reform and capacity building for the Palestinian Authority.
That is in addition to $30 million more in humanitarian aid to Gaza. It comes as the Prime Minister is facing increasing calls to recognize a Palestinian state from members of his own party.
finally taking the critical step towards realizing a two-state solution to peace in the Middle East, recognizing a free and independent state of Palestine.
Sunday, BC MP Will Greaves joining social media calls from fellow Liberal MPs Salma Zahid and Fares Al-Soud to recognize a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, as humanitarian aid trickles back into Gaza, Donald Trump is pushing back on the Israeli assertion that starvation was not occurring in the enclave.
Food, we can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it, and you can't fake that.
The Prime Minister says Canada has trucks of aid at the Jordanian border, pre-positioned to enter Gaza, but that had been prevented from doing so. He added that he'll take steps to advance a two-state solution, but one that doesn't include Hamas in any element of Palestinian leadership. Heather.
Colton Prale in Ottawa. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's setting a new deadline for Russia to make progress towards ending the war with Ukraine.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today.
Trump is threatening to impose secondary sanctions if no progress towards peace is made.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Trump denied visiting convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's island. Trump also said he threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago years ago, saying, quote, "He stole people who worked for me." Coming up.
I do caution that even though the numbers are still going down, they're still high.
The warnings to drivers on how car thieves are changing gears on tactics. There's some good news when it comes to auto thefts in this country, with a new report suggesting a sharp decrease in the number of stolen cars and trucks. But the authors are warning owners not to let their guard down. CTV's John Venevali-Rao tells us why.
Despite the improving numbers, on average nationwide, a vehicle is stolen every 10 minutes.
It's all a big shock, to be honest. I kind of feel violated.
Ryan Tostick of Milton, Ontario, is filling out insurance forms after his beloved 2004 Chevy Silverado was swiped from a repair shop just over a week ago. The thief was caught on surveillance cameras. Tostick says his truck had a new engine and says he'd never had anything stolen from him in his life.
Just, crazy to see what kind of value just is gone within minutes.
But compared to the same period in 2024, in the first half of this year, auto thefts were down 19% nationally, plunging almost 26% in Ontario, while Western and Atlantic Canada saw 9% declines.
I do caution that even though the numbers are still going down, they're still high, and it doesn't mean that we need to take our foot off the gas.
The report says better public awareness and collaborative efforts by governments and law enforcement agencies appear to be making a difference, noting during the pandemic auto thefts rose when the supply chain for new cars was disrupted, peaking in the first half of 2023 at 34,000 and declining ever since. Still, experts note there's been a shift towards stolen vehicles being sent to chop shops.
What's old is new again. Chop shops are having a surgence where they're stealing vehicles and selling it part by part, not only domestically but internationally.
According to the report, more stolen vehicles are being found. 56% were recovered in the first half of this year versus 53% last year.
Personally, I'd like to have the vehicle back. I'm not hopeful, but I'm trying to be hopeful.
And if you're wondering if insurance rates might come down because of fewer thefts, the Insurance Bureau of Canada says thefts still remain above historical levels, adding repair and vehicle replacement costs have also been on the rise. John Venevali-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, the summer era. The Canadian swim star on a mission, whose record she wants to match. Canada's Summer McIntosh claimed her second gold medal in the pool as she tries to swim to history at the World Championships in Singapore.
It's Walsh in second place. McIntosh takes another gold medal for Canada.
The 18-year-old Canadian phenom touched the wall first in the 200-meter individual medley, just shy of her own world record time. She already won gold in the 400-meter freestyle and is hoping for 5 golds, a feat that would equal a record set by Michael Phelps.
My phone rang. It's an unknown number, but I'm glad I answered it. When I logged in and saw the 60 million number, I couldn't believe it. I was just staring at it in shock. My hand, my feet all went numb.
Bo Chang Mei from Toronto was shocked about his whopping $60 million win. He promised his parents they could retire and enjoy life. The 26-year-old says his priorities are continued education and extended travel. Still ahead, we meet the newcomers getting their feet wet with an old tradition. We leave you tonight with a group of Ukrainian newcomers taking to the water in one of Newfoundland's oldest traditions, testing their rowing skills in the Royal St. John's Regatta this week. CTV's Garrett Barry on the competition and the conditions needed for it to go ahead.
5 times a week for many weeks now, this group of Ukrainian newcomers are trying their hands at something distinctly St. John's, fixed-seat rowing on Kitty Vitty Lake.
It's easy to watch, but when you start rowing, it's a little bit hard. Yeah.
They're set to compete in one of the oldest sporting traditions in North America, the 207th edition of the Royal St. John's Regatta.
It's really hard for now. We live in a new country. We start with trying to integrate in this country, and we want to be involved in this tradition.
It doesn't matter too much if it's cold or if it's wet. The wind is the biggest factor in determining whether Wednesday's races go ahead.
Every day we do this, because every day we check what the flag we have. Green, red, yellow. Okay, we can count.
It's no different than practice. You can only row when the conditions are favorable. And not only are the races weather dependent, so too is the entire Regatta Day holiday, which will draw thousands down to the lake.
2 years ago, I saw the regatta, and I really want that Ukrainians team will be in the regatta. And we decided it's really a great idea for communication, for integration in this community.
They'll compete in the new Everybody Welcome Open Crew division. It's the first time the regatta has had mixed teams, not segregated by gender.
Well, there was one time in the time trials where they kind of lost their oars, and to get it back, they all started to chant together, and it was really fun to listen to. I'd never encountered that before in another crew. Coach
Megan Willett isn't setting any time goals, just a good, proud performance, and maybe an interest in returning next year. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
Let's hope the weather cooperates. That is our newscast for this Monday. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Marcia McMillan is here tomorrow. Good night.